She stood vulnerable before him, testing his character, and his response changed everything they thought they knew about love and respect. It was one of those evenings where everything felt perfectly ordinary, until it wasn't. The rain had been falling steadily since noon, creating a gentle rhythm against the windows of the small apartment. Inside, warmth filled the rooms while the world outside grew darker with each passing hour. Alex sat hunched over his computer, fingers dancing across the keyboard as he worked on what seemed like his 100th design revision of the day. The blue light from his screen painted his face in concentration as he adjusted colors, moved elements around, and tried to bring his client's vision to life. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he barely noticed. When work called, everything else faded into the background. The apartment he shared had become his sanctuary over the past 6 months. It wasn't fancy by any means, just a modest 2-bedroom place with thin walls and creaky floors. But it felt like home in ways his previous living situations never had. Maybe it was because of who he shared it with. Maya had moved in during one of the most difficult periods of her life. After years of marriage that had slowly crumbled, she found herself starting over at 26. Alex had known her since they were kids, running around their small hometown, getting into harmless trouble and sharing dreams about the big city. When she needed a place to stay, offering his spare room felt like the most natural thing in the world. Their arrangement worked beautifully. She left for her new job at the marketing company each morning with determination in her step, slowly rebuilding her confidence after months of feeling lost. He worked from home, designing websites and creating graphics for small businesses, enjoying the flexibility but sometimes missing human interaction. When she came home in the evenings, they would share stories about their days, cook simple meals together, or just exist in comfortable silence while watching old movies. But Alex carried a secret that made some moments more complicated than others. His feelings for Maya had grown slowly over the years, like a plant reaching toward sunlight. During her marriage, he had carefully buried these feelings, respecting the boundaries and genuinely wanting her happiness above all else. When her marriage ended, he told himself to be patient, to be the friend she needed, not the complication she definitely didn't need. The sound of rain grew heavier as the evening wore on. Alex glanced at the clock on his screen and realized it was nearly 9. Maya had mentioned she might work late tonight, something about a big presentation tomorrow that needed final touches. The apartment felt unusually quiet without her presence, without the sound of her moving around the kitchen or the gentle hum of her voice during phone calls with family. He stretched his arms above his head, feeling the tension in his shoulders from hours of sitting in the same position. The project he was working on demanded perfection. A small restaurant owner who had saved for months to afford a new website, trusting Alex to help bring customers through their doors. These were the clients he cared about most, the ones whose success meant everything to their families and communities. The apartment's heating system kicked on with its familiar rumble, fighting against the chill that seemed to seep through the windows. Alex loved evenings like this, when the world outside felt harsh and unpredictable, but inside everything remained warm and secure. It reminded him of childhood nights when storms would rage outside while he and Maya would build blanket forts in his family's living room, creating their own little world where nothing could touch them. His computer screen flickered slightly, a reminder that the building's electrical system had seen better days. Alex saved his work obsessively, having learned the hard way that power outages in their neighborhood came without warning. The building was old but charming, with character that newer places lacked. Each apartment had its own personality, shaped by decades of different families and dreams. Maya's room was directly across from his, separated by a narrow hallway that seemed to grow shorter each day. Sometimes he would hear her talking on phone calls with her sister, processing the complicated emotions that came with starting over. Other times, late at night, he would hear her moving around, restless with thoughts that wouldn't let her sleep. He always fought the urge to knock on her door during those moments, to offer comfort or just a listening ear. But he respected her need for space, for time to heal at her own pace. The rain continued its steady percussion against the windows, creating a soundtrack for the evening that felt both soothing and melancholy. Alex found himself thinking about how much their friendship had deepened since she moved in. Living together had revealed small daily habits and preferences that years of occasional meetings had never exposed. She always left one light on in the kitchen when she went to bed, a small gesture that made the apartment feel less empty when he worked late. He always made extra coffee in the morning, knowing she preferred it strong and needed it desperately before facing the world. Their friendship had developed a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. They had learned to navigate the shared spaces with consideration, to give each other room when needed, and to offer support without being asked. It was the kind of living situation that people spent years trying to find, built on genuine care and mutual respect. As Alex returned his attention to his computer screen, adjusting the final elements of his design, he had no idea that this perfectly ordinary evening was about to become extraordinary. Sometimes the most significant moments in life arrive without warning, disguised as regular Thursday nights when nothing seems particularly special. Sometimes change walks through your door when you least expect it, carrying with it the power to transform everything you thought you knew about friendship, trust, and the delicate space between what is and what could be. The sound of the front door opening barely registered in Alex's consciousness. He was deep in the zone, that magical place where creativity flowed freely and time seemed to disappear. Colors danced across his screen as he fine-tuned the final details of his project. The restaurant owner was counting on him, and Alex never took that responsibility lightly. But something felt different tonight. Usually, when Maya came home, he would hear her keys jingling, her shoes dropping by the door, maybe the rustle of grocery bags or the familiar sound of her purse hitting the kitchen counter. Tonight, there was only silence after that initial Dr. Click. An unusual quiet that made him pause for just a moment before returning to his work. Minutes passed, maybe 10 or 15, though time moved strangely when he was focused. The rain outside had softened to a gentle patter, creating a peaceful backdrop for his concentration. He was adjusting the brightness of a logo when he heard footsteps in the hallway. Soft, deliberate steps that seemed to move slower than usual. Alex didn't look up immediately. Their apartment had thin walls, and he had learned to tune out the normal sounds of daily life. Maya often moved around the apartment in the evenings, getting comfortable after long days at the office. But something about tonight felt different, though he couldn't put his finger on exactly what. The footsteps stopped right outside his door. For a moment, everything went completely silent. No movement, no sound, just the gentle rain against the windows and the quiet hum of his computer. Alex found himself holding his breath without knowing why, his fingers frozen above the keyboard. Something in the air had shifted, like the moment before thunder when the whole world seems to pause and wait. Then his door opened. Not the usual confident knock followed by her cheerful voice asking if she could come in. Not the gentle tap that usually preceded their evening conversations. Just the door opening slowly, quietly, like someone trying not to wake a sleeping house. Alex turned in his chair, expecting to see Maya's familiar smile, maybe an apology for the late interruption, perhaps excitement about how her presentation had gone, but the woman standing in his doorway was someone he had never seen before, even though she wore Maya's face. Her business dress, usually crisp and professional, hung loose and wrinkled from the day. Her hair, normally styled with care, fell in soft waves around her shoulders as if she had been running her fingers through it. But it was her eyes that stopped him completely. They held a depth of exhaustion he had never witnessed before, mixed with something else he couldn't immediately identify. Maya stood there for what felt like forever, but was probably only seconds, just looking at him with those tired, searching eyes. Her lips curved into a smile, but it wasn't her usual bright expression. This smile held years of trust, vulnerability, and something that made Alex's heart skip in ways that both thrilled and terrified him. Without saying a word, without any explanation, Maya reached up and let her dress slip from her shoulders. The fabric fell softly to the floor around her feet, not in any dramatic or calculated way, but like someone finally allowing themselves to breathe after holding it in all day. Like someone shedding not just clothes, but the weight of pretending. Everything was fine when it wasn't. Alex felt his world tilt sideways. This wasn't seduction or manipulation. This was raw honesty from someone who trusted him completely, someone who felt safe enough to be utterly vulnerable in his presence. Maya's smile remained gentle and tired, her eyes never leaving his face as if she was asking a question she didn't know how to put into words. The room filled with a tension that had nothing to do with physical desire and everything to do with the complexity of human connection. Here was his dearest friend, someone he had loved from a distance for years, standing before him in complete vulnerability. Not because she wanted to tempt him, but because she needed something from him that went deeper than friendship but wasn't quite love either. Alex's mind raced through 1,000 different responses. Part of him wanted to look away, to preserve her dignity and his own comfort. Another part wanted to reach for her, to offer whatever comfort she was seeking. But the strongest part of him, the part that had always put her well-being above his own desires, knew that this moment required something different entirely. The silence stretched between them, filled with years of friendship, months of careful boundaries, and the weight of feelings neither had fully acknowledged. Outside, the rain continued its gentle rhythm, but inside this small room, two people stood at the edge of a moment that would change everything they thought they knew about each other. Time seemed frozen in that small room, with its soft lamplight, and the gentle glow from Alex's computer screen. Maya stood there, vulnerable and trusting, while Alex felt his heart hammering against his ribs. Every instinct told him to react, to move, to do something, but his deeper wisdom whispered that this moment required more thought than impulse. Without breaking eye contact, Alex slowly reached for the soft throw blanket that always lived draped over the back of his desk chair. His movements were gentle, deliberate, like someone approaching a frightened animal. He stood up carefully, his chair rolling back on its wheels, and stepped toward Maya with the blanket extended. Instead of taking advantage of her vulnerability, instead of assuming this was an invitation for something physical, Alex wrapped the blanket around her shoulders with the tenderness of a brother caring for a sister. His hands never lingered, never took liberties, but simply provided warmth and comfort to someone who clearly needed both. Maya's eyes filled with tears she had been holding back all day, maybe all week. She pulled the blanket tighter around herself and looked up at Alex with an expression that mixed surprise, gratitude, and something that might have been disappointment. She had expected a different reaction, had perhaps even hoped for one, but his response revealed something about his character that she had never fully understood before. "What happened today?" Alex asked softly, guiding her to sit on the edge of his bed while he pulled his desk chair closer. His voice carried no judgment, no assumptions about why she had acted as she did. Just genuine concern for someone he cared about deeply. Maya was quiet for a long time, staring down at her hands where they gripped the blanket. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "He's getting married again." The words came out flat, emotionless, like she had rehearsed them but still couldn't quite believe them herself. Alex felt something heavy settle in his chest. Maya's ex-husband, the man she had spent 5 years of her life loving, supporting, and trying to make happy. The man who had slowly chipped away at her confidence until she barely recognized herself. The man who had made her feel like she wasn't enough, wasn't interesting enough, wasn't attractive enough to hold someone's attention. "I found out at work," Maya continued, her words coming faster now as if a dam had burst. "One of my colleagues saw the engagement announcement on social media and thought I already knew. She was congratulating me on how well I was handling it, how mature I was being about the whole thing. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Maya had spent months healing from a relationship that had left her questioning her worth, only to discover that her ex-husband had already found someone new, someone he deemed worthy of the commitment he had never been able to give her. "I smiled and thanked her," Maya said, laughing bitterly. "I acted like it was fine, like I was happy for him, but inside I felt like I was disappearing all over again, like maybe he was right about me all along. Maybe I really am forgettable." Alex felt anger rise in his throat, not at Maya, but at the situation, at the man who had damaged someone so wonderful that she couldn't see her own worth. But he pushed that anger aside because Maya needed support, not more negativity. "So I came home," she continued, and I kept thinking about how he could move on so easily while I'm still trying to figure out who I am without him. And then I thought about you, about how safe I feel here, about how you look at me like I matter. And I wanted to feel desirable again, wanted to feel like someone could want me. The honesty in her words cut straight through to Alex's heart. This wasn't about seduction or even romance. This was about a woman trying to reclaim her sense of self-worth through the eyes of someone she trusted completely. Maya, Alex said gently, leaning forward in his chair so he could meet her eyes. You matter so much more than you realize. Not because of how anyone looks at you, not because of who wants you or doesn't want you, but because of who you are. You're kind and funny and stronger than you give yourself credit for. She looked up at him with tears flowing freely now, and Alex felt his own eyes burning with emotion. I have feelings for you, he admitted, his voice steady despite the racing of his heart. I have for years, but I'm not going to act on them while you're hurting like this. You deserve better than someone taking advantage of your pain. Maya's face showed a mixture of relief and confusion. She had expected him to want her, had perhaps even counted on it to restore her damaged confidence. But his refusal, given with such gentleness and respect, forced her to confront the real issue underneath her actions. I don't know how to feel valuable on my own, she whispered, the admission seeming to surprise even her. Alex reached out and took her hand, squeezing. Itchy. The next morning arrived with an uncomfortable silence that seemed to fill every corner of the apartment. Alex woke up earlier than usual, his mind immediately jumping back to the events of the previous night. He lay in bed for a few extra minutes, staring at the ceiling and wondering if he had handled things correctly. The conversation with Maya had felt right in the moment, but now, in the clear light of morning, doubt crept in like unwelcome visitors. He could hear Maya moving around in her room, the familiar sounds of her morning routine echoing through the thin walls. But something was different. Her movements seemed more cautious, quieter than usual. The easy confidence that normally marked her mornings had been replaced by something more hesitant. Alex finally got up and made his way to the kitchen, following his usual pattern of starting the coffee maker before anything else. The rich smell of brewing coffee usually brought comfort, but today it felt like he was going through the motions of normalcy, while everything underneath had shifted. Maya appeared in the kitchen doorway a few minutes later, already dressed for work, but moving. With unusual care, she wore a conservative blue dress that covered her completely, as if she was trying to erase the vulnerability she had shown the night before. Her hair was pulled back in a strict ponytail, and her makeup was applied with extra precision, like armor against the world. "Good morning," she said quietly, not quite meeting his eyes. "Morning," Alex replied, pouring coffee into 2 mugs as he always did. "How did you sleep?" "Fine," she answered quickly, though the dark circles under her eyes suggested otherwise. She accepted the coffee mug from him, being careful that their fingers didn't touch during the exchange. The kitchen, which had always been a place of comfortable conversation and shared laughter, now felt thick with unspoken thoughts. Alex wanted to say something, anything, to bridge the gap that seemed to have appeared overnight. But every possible comment felt either too heavy or too light for the moment. Maya took a sip of her coffee and winced slightly, though Alex had made it exactly the way she always liked it. "I should probably get going early today," she said, glancing at the clock on the microwave. "I want to review my presentation one more time before the meeting." Alex nodded, recognizing the excuse for what it was. Maya was usually the type to linger over morning coffee, sharing random thoughts or funny dreams from the night before. This rushed departure was clearly about avoiding the awkwardness that hung between them. "Maya," he started, but she was already moving toward the door. "I'll probably be late again tonight," she called over her shoulder. "Don't wait up for me." And then she was gone, leaving Alex standing alone in the kitchen with 2 full mugs of coffee and a growing sense that he had somehow made everything worse by trying to do the right thing. The day dragged on endlessly. Alex found it impossible to concentrate on his work, his mind constantly wandering back to Maya's expression when she had stood in his doorway, and then to her carefully distant behavior this morning. He kept checking his phone, hoping for a text message that never came. By evening, Alex had convinced himself that he had completely ruined their friendship. Maybe Maya had expected him to react differently. Maybe his attempt to be respectful had actually made her feel rejected and embarrassed. The more he thought about it, the more certain he became that he had handled everything wrong. When Maya finally came home well after 10 o'clock, Alex was sitting in the living room pretending to watch television. She offered a tired hello and headed straight for her room, but Alex couldn't let another day pass in this strange silence. "Maya, wait," he called out, and she stopped in the hallway without turning around. "Can we talk? I feel like I messed everything up last night, and I don't want things to be weird between us." She stood there for a long moment, her back still toward him. When she finally spoke, her voice was so quiet he had to strain to hear it. "You didn't mess anything up, Alex." "I did. I put you in an impossible situation, and now I don't know how to face you without feeling embarrassed about it." Alex felt relief wash over him, followed immediately by sadness for what Maya was putting herself through. "You have nothing to be embarrassed about. You were hurting, and you trusted me enough to show me that. I'm honored that you felt safe with me." Maya finally turned around, and Alex could see tears threatening to spill from her eyes. "But I wanted you to want me," she admitted. "And when you didn't, it just confirmed everything I was already feeling about myself." "Maya, I do want you," Alex said, standing up from the couch. "That's exactly why I couldn't take advantage of you when you were vulnerable. Wanting someone and respecting them aren't opposites. They go together." For the first time since the previous night, Maya looked directly at him, really looked at him, as if she was seeing him clearly for the first time. "I never thought about it that way," she said softly. Alex took a step closer, but not too close. "I've watched you rebuild yourself these past months, and it's been incredible to see. I didn't want to be someone who set that progress back, even accidentally." Maya wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. "I think I've been so focused on feeling wanted that I forgot about feeling valued. They're not the same thing, are they?" "Not even close," Alex confirmed. "And Maya, you are valued. By me, by your friends, by everyone who really knows you. Your ex-husband was an idiot who couldn't see what he had." A small smile finally appeared on Maya's face, the first genuine one Alex had seen from her in 2 days. "So where does this leave us?" she asked. Alex considered the question carefully. "I think it leaves us being honest with each other for the first time in a long time. About our feelings, about what we want, about what we're ready for." Maya nodded slowly. "I think I'd like that. But I need some time to figure out what I actually want versus what I think I should want." "Take all the time you need," Alex said. "I'm not going anywhere." 3 weeks passed before Maya knocked on Alex's door again, but this time she waited for his invitation before entering. When she stepped into his room, she was carrying 2 mugs of tea and wearing a soft smile that reminded Alex of the girl he had known years ago before life got complicated. "I brought peace offerings," she said, setting the mugs on his desk. "And I wanted to talk." Alex saved his work and turned to face her, noting how different she seemed. There was a lightness in her posture that hadn't been there before, a sense of someone who had spent time thinking and had come to some important conclusions. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Maya began, settling into the chair across from him. "About what happened, about what I want, about who I am when I'm not trying to be what someone else needs me to be." Alex listened quietly, sensing that this conversation had been carefully prepared and that Maya needed to say everything she had planned. "I realized that for the past year, maybe longer, I've been measuring my worth by whether someone wanted me. When my marriage started falling apart, I thought it was because I wasn't attractive enough or interesting enough. When I learned about his engagement, it felt like proof that I was right about myself." She paused to take a sip of her tea, gathering her thoughts. "But these past few weeks, living with this awkwardness between us, I started to understand something different. The way you responded to me that night, the way you've treated me every day since I moved in here, It's shown me what respect actually looks like. Alex felt his heart beating faster, but he remained quiet, letting her finish. I've never had someone put my well-being ahead of their own desires before, Maya continued. Even when I was practically throwing myself at you, you were more concerned about making sure I was okay than about what you could get from the situation. That's not something I knew existed. Maya, Alex started, but she held up a hand. Let me finish, she said with a gentle laugh. I need to get this all out before I lose my nerve. She took a deep breath and looked directly at him. I do have feelings for you, Alex. Real ones, not just gratitude or loneliness or the need to feel desirable. I think I've had them for a while, but I was too scared to acknowledge them because our friendship means everything to me. Alex felt warmth spreading through his chest, but also a touch of caution. They had been down a similar road before, and he wanted to make sure this time was different. The thing is, Maya continued, I'm not ready to jump into something romantic right away. I need more time to keep figuring out who I am on my own. But I also don't want to keep pretending that these feelings don't exist. So what are you suggesting? Alex asked gently. Maya smiled, and this time it reached her eyes completely. I'm suggesting we try something new. We keep being honest with each other about how we feel, but we take things slow. Really slow. I want to learn how to be in a relationship where I feel valued and respected, not just wanted. Alex set down his tea mug and leaned forward slightly. I think that sounds perfect. I've waited this long to tell you how I feel. I can wait a little longer to see where this goes. There's one more thing, Maya said, her cheeks turning slightly pink. I want to cook dinner together tonight. Nothing fancy, just us trying to be normal friends who happen to like each other in a more than friends way. Alex laughed, feeling lighter than he had in weeks. I think I can handle that, but I should warn you, my cooking skills are pretty basic. That's okay, Maya said, standing up and moving toward the door. We'll figure it out together. That seems to be what we do best. As she reached the doorway, she turned back to him. Alex, thank you for being patient with me, for seeing me as more than just someone to rescue or someone to want, for seeing me as someone worth waiting for. Thank you for trusting me enough to be honest, Alex replied, about everything. That evening, they stood in their small kitchen, laughing as they tried to coordinate making pasta and salad without bumping into each other. The awkwardness of the past few weeks had dissolved into something warmer and more hopeful. They talked about their days, their work, their dreams for the future, just like they always had. But underneath it all was a new understanding, a foundation of honesty and respect that neither had experienced before. As they sat down to eat their imperfect meal, Maya raised her water glass in a mock toast. To taking things slow, she said. To taking things right, Alex replied, clinking his glass against hers. Outside, the city continued its busy rhythm, but inside their small apartment, two people who had been friends for years were carefully, thoughtfully, beginning something entirely new. Something built not on desperate need or convenient timing, but on genuine care, mutual respect, and the patient hope that the best relationships are worth waiting for.